Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, all you beautiful creatures of this earth, it is League on Lock. That is Mark. My name is Eric. Got a little special epi for you today because we're going back in time. We're looking back at previous world championships, and why not begin with... I'm calling it the beginning of it all because I don't count season 1. It's season 2 where things started getting crazy. It started developing as the biggest esport in the world. The prize pool was getting crazy, and the storylines for teams and players, and really it's the first time you can fully say North America disappointed internationally.
The start of a long, unfortunate trend for NA fans of not doing so hot at Worlds. But you're right, this is really kind of feels like the official Worlds. I know a lot of Fnatic fans and Fnatic faithful will say, of course, season 1 counted and everything's totally legit there. But season 2 really is when things kick off. You start bringing in the rest of the globe, get this official event onwards. And man, you know what? This Worlds, specifically season 2, really does hold a special place when I look back at the World Championships that we've had.
Yeah, and it had a $2 million prize pool in US, and half of that, $1 million of it, was going right in the winning team's pocket at the end. Even finishing 11th, 12th, there was only 12 teams. So you were still getting $25K just for showing up, just for qualifying.
Hey, always love picking up some cash, and again, good to see the cash was there in the early days of League of Legends. Remember, this is before contracts really became standardized and became better for the players as well.
There weren't contracts.
So this is it. You got to be having your performances come through to pick up that cash, not only for the organization, but more importantly for yourself here. That's what we were playing for in season 2, and these squads seeing these cash prizes, they've only gone up from there. It's been a couple years since we've seen that increase for it. But look, we've got the contract situation now. Back then, they didn't. Got to get this cash, and good to see that the spread out was still pretty good, even if you were getting into this event.
And it was still early in League of Legends and just competitive esports in general. So there were some janky parts for this whole tournament, starting with there were 5 top seeds that came in through qualifying, won their region to qualify to get to this event.
So you're going to give me 5 groups, right? That's how it works.
So, okay, wait a sec. Okay, so they should get a bye because of the first seed. They should get right to quarterfinals. But 5 is too many. So Riot said, you know what? We're just going to flip a coin, roll a dice. One of you guys, even though you're the first seed, you got to play in the group stage. So you had Azubu Frost, who were the best team in Korea, coming over, and they had to go in the group stage because, well, they lost a draw. That's how you start a tournament, man.
And look, I get it that the draw has been something that's been powerful and mysterious with League of Legends. And as we get to Worlds and talking about getting into the right group and the group of death, whatnot, sure. Not here. This is not what was going on. This is a matter of picking and choosing who would have to go on, who didn't deserve to have to go down and fight these type of battles. That's not the situation that we're looking at, obviously, today. And I'm sure there would be quite an uproar and controversy from the community if that was ever tried to be implemented now with what we have at Worlds.
Well, now the equivalent is the pool 1 seeds do a draw and one of them has to be pool 2. Oh, sorry, that whole year of lead up to this, it's for nothing. It doesn't quite equate to the same this year. But the big team that wasn't there was Fnatic. They finished 4th in the EU regionals. So you had SK, Moscow 5, who are one of the best teams in the world in Season 2, and CLG EU, also one of the best teams in the world. EU was much greater than NA at this event, as we will get to a little bit later. But TSM did have a bye to quarterfinals because they won the draw. But you had Group A, which was Azubu Frost, Invictus Gaming, CLG Prime, CLG NA, eventually just CLG, and SK Gaming was Group A. Group B, you had Najin, Sword, CLG EU, the Sagon Jokers, and Dignitas. The last time we've seen Dig at Worlds, even though Clutch was technically there. But there was a lot of big name players. Najin had Prey on it, which so insane that this guy had been playing for that long. That he played at Season 2 Worlds, Mark. His teammates were coaches in North America now in Song and Kane.
I gotta say, that's one of the best things looking back at some of these rosters is recognizing players like Prey and saying, yeah, okay, Prey, really long career, fantastic, all these highlights that you remember. And then you're looking at the other members of the roster and trying to figure out whether they continued on as players or they went on to be pros, because pretty much the vast majority of people that were involved with this Season 2 World Championship, you look at a lot of them, you can trace their paths in the esports scene, let alone in League of Legends, and keep track of what they've been doing. And a lot of them, they've still been finding some success here and there in the scene.
And a lot of the NA and EU players have also retired because Season 2 was a very long time ago. But the group stage, starting with Group A, there was a lot of banger games. You had CLG. The most infamous game for them is, of course, the backdoor against SK Gaming. It happens to us a lot again. First it was Expeke, then it happens against CLG. It was the triple teleport strategy plus promote they were running at times. CLG had the cheesiest strats that you could imagine coming into this World Championship, and it was SK getting heartbreak. They would eventually finish 0-3 in the group because of this loss.
Yeah, and that's the rough one for them, is losing this one that was in their hands completely. And yes, it is the surprise backdoor coming through from the CLG squad. Of course, what other organization but CLG coming through with that backdoor victory to seal things up? That was about maybe the only real bright spot for a North American organization at this Worlds and for a couple of years.
It was, spoiler, their only win. All of North American teams was from a backdoor to switch the game. But CLG wins that, and then they play Azubu Frost to close out the group stage, and you think, okay, you win that, you're going to get out of groups. Problem is, they went up against Shy. Not the Shy, just Shy. His Jax 1v2 is the other infamous play from this group stage, where he absolutely embarrasses Voyboy and Hotshot GG. God bless him.
Yeah, man. You know what? He certainly does not reach the same highs that the Shy is able to reach, but Shy was certainly not a pushover in that top lane whatsoever, and especially you look back at the longevity of his career moving onwards, certainly not anything to be dismissed in that top side. And man, he was dismissing Voyboy left, right, and center in that one.
And it ended up being Invictus Gaming getting out in that second seed as Azubu Frost punished by having to play the group stage. They go 3-0. Doesn't really matter to them. IG, very different looking. PDD, now the owner of Young Miracles, and E-Star was the top laner. Zatai was still on the squad, but he was playing mid lane. This is several years before Rookie ever shows up on this roster, but they finished second. Group B was a little bit more cut and dry. It was clearly Najin Sword. They just dumpstered everybody. CLG EU was clearly the second best team in the group, but the good story was Dignitas saying that Dyrus leaked all their strategies. You know what their strategies were, Mark? Their strategies were...
Yeah, break it down.
We're going to roam the map with Taric. Okay, oh, that's it. That's the strategy. Okay, the other strategy is we're going to pick bruisers to counter-pick champions like Diana, Gragas in the mid lane. That's it. That's our strategy. That's just regular pick and ban now. But this is Season 2, the game not quite as developed.
The game has developed massively since then, and strategy alongside it. Thankfully, that's where we're at today, because when you look back and you talk about that being your league strats, it's kind of like, yeah, well, dude, come up with anything else. Like, that takes like literally the equivalent of 2 to 3 seconds to put together some type of game plan, like the one that you just had before that you're complaining about being leaked. It was not that complex, and I don't think, of course, was a big deal at the time, but looking back, I don't think anybody would treat it with any real type of seriousness. But of course, the trend here that now we're taking a look at is TSM and their history of leaks.
Yeah, it's been going back for a very long time. Doesn't matter if they're hurting their own NA brethren. But other than that, what that did for Dignitas is they ended up getting absolutely smoked by the Sejuani Jokers, who people expected them to at least pick up a win against them, but they got crushed. And it was Archie, yes, Gigabyte Marines Archie, playing 80 carry, styling on Dignitas with an Ezreal quadra-kill. The guy has played almost 5 roles professionally, but was at a time one of the best 80 carries in Southeast Asia.
Gotta love my boy Archie doing that work. And of course, always, as always, he's been a little thorn in the side of NA trying to advance internationally. Gets to do it here in Season 2, kicking it off.
Yeah, predating any of the times that he had on the Gigabyte Marines. The quarterfinals, as we advance, it was Najin, as we said, CLG, EU, Azubu Frost, IG, all getting through into that quarterfinal matchup. So America, CLG 1 and 2, they're out. Dignitas 0 and 3, they're out. But it's okay. It's fine, guys, because we have Team Solo Mid. They're the top seed from NA. They won the last 6 tournaments they were in. They go right to the quarterfinals. They draw Azubu Frost. And yeah, they're not favorites. They're underdogs in that matchup. And game 1, oh no, Mark. Wung looked at the mini-map. He saw 5 people invading top on TSM, and he pinged it. And then all of a sudden, Shy magically shoots a blind Q on Jace into a bush, and oh, funny, TSM members there. So yes, he definitely looked at the map. He definitely knew where they were going. Your level 1 invade, I don't think that shapes the entire series. If that works for TSM, even if they somehow get a kill on the Jace, doesn't matter. Probably not.
Look, if TSM was up to the task of taking down Abuzu Frost that day, the score in the series would not have been how it ended up, in no matter how you play out this situation and how much it impacts them in this early one. I'm not buying it. Look, was it kosher to look back and have the map set up behind the 2 teams and have a situation where you could have a player find the minimap? No, that's not kosher. That's not okay. And that's not something that we should have had moving forward, which thankfully we really haven't. But is it enough to really say that TSM got screwed over here and absolutely got jobbed, and that's the reason why? No, they simply did not perform up to the level necessary to get forward, which, you know what? Unfortunately, yeah, you can maybe put a couple excuses along that history. For most of them, that is the reason why you didn't get through.
TSM did a Cloud9 before Cloud9 where you play one single best of 3 at Worlds and you're out. Except they didn't win a game. They got 2-0'd clean by Azubu. Maybe not clean because of the whole mini-map fiasco. But yeah, all that did really was change Riot and say, maybe we shouldn't have the massive map of both teams right behind them. I feel like somebody should have told them that before the game.
Definitely before the game, but this is certainly something when you look back and you think of, man, you know, well, okay, when we had this going on in Freak's literal basement, that wasn't much of an issue that we had to be concerned about. But as League of Legends grew and as we were trying to get bigger stages to put on for the World Championship, this was something that had to be looked at. And thankfully now, when we look back at the past couple of World Championships and you look at the live stages that they put together, absolutely taken into account to try and maintain as much competitive integrity as possible.
And meant to say it earlier, 8.2 million total viewers for Season 2 Worlds. It was basically only across a week, and 1.1 million concurrent was the peak. So it really took a step up from Season 1 and any other, at least League of Legends, pretty much any esport event ever. That was a record. So yeah, things were blowing up. Moscow 5 and TPA also 2-0'd their quarterfinals. And by the way, we know now the Cinderella run that TPA had. People seem to forget and just think it was the finals where TPA had an upset to take down Azubu Frost. It started right away against Najin Sword. They were expected to lose in the quarterfinals against a team that just obliterated the group stage, but they 2-0'd them in pretty clean fashion, and Toys obviously ends up having one of the tournament runs of the ages. But the upset started from the get-go for TPA. It was not just the finals.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of my favorite things. Looking back at Season 2 is recognizing the greatness from TPA because, yes, their history afterwards and things forward isn't obviously as positive as this. But when you look at this championship, you look at this run here, this is what it's all about, the magical runs that teams can put together at these type of championship events. You're right. They put it together right from the very get-go, upsetting teams that you wouldn't have expected them to get by. You thought maybe, okay, you can put up a little bit of a fight. Should be fun to watch this series. You were never expecting them to get through. And again, it starts off with one of the biggest upsets possible against Najin Sword.
The other quarterfinal talked about M5 getting through IG to the top 4, but one of the most influential best of series that we've ever had in terms of grand overall context of the pro scene is World Elite versus CLG EU. This is the technical issues galore where they get to game 3, Mark. 50 minutes into game 3, CLG EU looks like, okay, they might be able to close this game. They're knocking on the base of WE, and everybody DCs. The internet goes down. They can't finish the game. It takes a long time. They start game 3 again. Get 20 minutes in. Everybody DCs again. They end up having to wait 3 days. Not 3 days. They have to wait a full day before they can even play the quarterfinals again. But what this series did was introduce, because the passive play, CLG EU classic fashion, it was so slow that this is when fans started cheering for ward kills, which is something we still see today. And because there was so many technical issues, you would hear Silver Scrapes on loop for hours on the stream. And that's 2 memes that were born from this series. So worth the wait. Worth the wait, man.
It's perfect. It's just like, those 10-hour videos on YouTube of Epic Sax guy, or, taking the hobbits to Isengard. We got basically the 10 hours of Silver Scrapes.
You didn't even need to edit it. It was just 10 hours raw.
Exactly. It was perfect getting that one right out there. Always doesn't matter if it's the first time, doesn't matter if it's the 100th time, doesn't matter if it's the 1000th time you hear it. I'm always down to hear some Silver Scrapes. And yes, this is where we all got a big introduction to hear it so many times afterwards. But these type of pauses, these type of issues with tech and whatnot, this is a little preview. We've gotten ahead of those quite a lot in the past couple of years. But when you're looking at maybe heading towards what we might see this year for Worlds and what we could possibly be looking at, I'd wager to say that we might be seeing some technical issues, and to be looking back in the past here at season 2 and get a refresher at how bad it can be sometimes on the technical side and what you have to deal with here might keep things in perspective.
But just imagine 8 hours as Riot staff trying to talk through nonsensically for that long, players waiting for 8 hours, anyone working on the venue for 8 hours, and then after it all you say, yeah, it's not going to work. We'll do it again tomorrow. I just played 8 hours of League on and off for no reason.
I don't know how anyone convinces their teammates that if they're losing at that point in the game to say that for 8 hours to convince your teammates that it's winnable. I don't know, man. That is a hell of a task to do.
Yeah, and you could even surrender at this point in the proceed. So I might have just said, you win, whatever. But of course they win.
Come on, Eric, we scale. We gotta wait. We scale.
We got 50 grand, man. It's fine. Yeah,
we got the late game.
CLG EU did eventually survive and make it into the top 4, which gave us 2 EU teams in the semifinals. And, well, the CLG EU and World Elite quarterfinals carried over into semis because it was so delayed. They had to move the venue of the semis to the Galen Center, which is where the finals were going to be. But the problem was they were setting up for the finals. So there was no audience for any of the semifinals, and it looked like a construction site behind them. It was very weird. It was a monumental moment in esports, we'll say. That's what it was.
Again, this is clearly one of those signs that as much as we tried to put together this face of, look at us, season 1, we're now season 2. We are so grown up as an esports. We're developing. We're becoming classier. We are going to be perfect right at the forefront. Yeah, still some technical hiccups and little growing pains for sure, of course, going on. Things that, you look back in the past and you're absolutely shocked these are the things going on from Riot and the way that they've handled their live events in the World Championships, especially in the past couple of splits.
And the semifinals ended up going, finally. M5 and CLG were both eliminated. The upset train continued. Moscow 5 were favorites for the entire event, probably behind Azubu Frost. They were the next favorites to win the entire event, maybe even higher than Azubu. So the fact that they also lost to TPA only makes their run that much more impressive, but both of these series were pretty close. They went to 3. I wish we had best of 5s back then, but it's only best of 3, and both EU teams eliminated.
Yeah, and especially when you think of the Moscow 5 and how they had to play in that series in TPA, you wanted them. You wanted to see it come through. You wanted to see the advantages. You wanted to see that Evelyn pick, that Alex Ich Evelyn pick come through and absolutely demolish. Not enough. Not enough to get
Toys
by.
Too good, man. Toys, one of the greatest
exactly.
runs at Worlds. I know the competition wasn't the same level, but he was incredible, and he rolls into the finals against Azubu Frost and Rapid Star. Not the finals people were expecting. Should have been M5 versus Azubu. Ends up being TPA. They have that crazy game 1. And the whole meta for this tournament was control mages in the mid lane. It was Karthus, Anivia, Orianna were kind of the 3 big picks to roll through in that mid lane. And this series, Rapid Star was one of the best mids at the tournament, no doubt. Toys was up 80 plus CS in 3 out of the 4 games. 3 out of 4.
Just insanity on that performance, what was coming through. Look, they stepped up to the plate big time in one of these matches. This is one of those ones that even heading into this one, even considering what upsets they were able to make heading to this point, you're still counting them as underdogs heading into the finals. You looked at the performance and what they did. This was absolutely not an underdog showing up on the day. This is clearly the better team showing up on the day.
Yeah, and it was... You saw Toys get forever immortalized in the Ignite music video. He had the Orianna ulti against Cloud Templar. And it's crazy to think, again, Season 2 was a long time ago, but how many of these players are not playing anymore? More often than not, like 90% of these guys are not playing. Cloud Templar, obviously part of the LCK broadcast, the Korean side, Rapid Star. Coach in NA, because that's either you're a commentator in Korea or you're a coach in NA. That's basically what's happened with a lot of these Korean players.
And even when you look at some of the other players at this Season 2 tournament, Loco Doco, you got all these things going through. A lot of the people in the community were involved in this. And especially when you think back at Season 2 and how special it is, one of my favorite things about Season 2, and again, about this World Championships, is the World Championship skins that we got from this one. Because, yes, got a nice range of champions as well. But I think that the whole theme really behind them and this idea that, you know, they're the fans, they are the ones on the Taipei Assassins, that was always really cool to me.
Yeah, and you know Mark loves to play a little bit of Nunu, so he's just happy to have those skins.
I like the Nunu, but don't get me wrong, that combo of Orianna Shen, throw them down both in the bot lane, put them both in TPA Assassin skins, that is what you're talking about.
Unbeatable. Updated recently, too, these TPA skin lines. But that remains one of the... Not just the win against Azubu Frost, but that entire tournament run, underdogs in every best of series for TPA. Even if the competition, the meta, the game was not nearly as developed or as evolved as it is now, that's still one of the greatest underdog runs that we've ever seen.
I think that is where people try to put some criticism on this World Championship and on this run from the Assassins. But when you really do examine it and you examine the series and you look back at the performances in these games, it is no surprise. It is no upset in the way that they played and the way that they held out their advantages. This was the squad that said, look, you might be underestimating us. You might not be putting any type of bets on us to be the victors, but we are putting that money on ourselves. We are definitely doubling down on our own abilities, and it always came up good for them.
The crazy thing is, there could be a chance in these best of ones maybe where if TPA lost this draw that Azubu did, maybe there's a crazy world where they go 1-2 or something and don't even get out of groups, and we don't have this miraculous run that they go through. They probably still would have gotten out over, you know, Dignitas or CLG Prime. But
I think the talent would shine through for sure in the way that they were playing. But you're right, something like that, and that's, again, one of the big issues with that type of system in place. 5 top teams, you got to have a better situation than just saying, sorry, you lost the draw, one of you screwed.
In the end, they changed the format to, well, there's just 4 top teams.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
there
all
we
they
go.
did, was knock a team off. But TPA beats 3 of the 4 overall tournament favorites. You got to recognize it as one of the best runs that we've seen at any World Championship. Put some respect on the TPA boys. They absolutely deserve it. But that is all the time today for League Unlocked. Mark and Eric here with you guys. As always, thanks for hanging out with us, and we will catch you guys and gals on the flippity flop.